Rams fans, something is definitely happening around this team right now, and honestly, I don't think we should ignore it. There are two Rams stories you need to hear today, and both of them say something pretty interesting about where this roster is heading as we get closer to the season. One is about a move that could quietly add another piece to an already dangerous part of this team, and the other involves a young player whose Rams journey may already be taking a very different turn than expected. And when you put these two stories together, you start to see just how competitive this roster is becoming. Before we get into it, I'm Jake, and this is Rams House Daily. If you're a real Rams fan, and you believe this team has what it takes to make a serious run and get back to the Super Bowl, hit that like button and subscribe. This channel is still brand new, and we're trying to build our Rams family from the ground up, with an early goal of 350 subscribers. So if you're part of the Rams house from day one, I'd love to have you here with us. Now let's get into these two stories because there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with the first story, because the Rams are adding another young defensive lineman to the mix. And while this isn't the kind of move that's going to dominate headlines, these are exactly the roster moves that can become really important once training camp gets intense. The Rams have signed rookie undrafted free agent Daniel Rickert, a defensive end who spent last season with the Virginia Cavaliers. The team announced the move on August 7th, describing it simply as a free agent signing for defensive end Daniel Rickert. And look, Rickert has a steep road ahead of him. Being an undrafted rookie means there are no guarantees. He has to survive training camp, perform in the preseason, and convince the coaching staff that he deserves one of those 53 roster spots. But there are some things about Rickert that make this interesting. He stands 6'2" and has a physical profile that's somewhat similar to Byron Young. And last season at Virginia, Rickert recorded 6.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 36 total tackles, and 1 forced fumble across 14 games. Those numbers aren't necessarily going to make you think this guy is the next Myles Garrett overnight, obviously. But there is production there, and there is a reason the Rams decided to give him an opportunity. Rickert also spent time at Tennessee Tech before transferring to Virginia. According to Rams on SI's Blaine Grisack, Rickert appeared in 57 games and made 37 starts over a 6-year college career between Virginia and Tennessee Tech. And one detail really caught my attention. Virginia defensive coordinator John Rudzinski reportedly called Rickert the Cavaliers' best player during their 2025 campaign. That's significant praise. Now, does that automatically mean Rickert is going to make this Rams roster? Absolutely not. This is the NFL. The competition is brutal, especially on a Rams defense that is expecting major things from Myles Garrett and Byron Young. But that's exactly why I like this move. The Rams are going to need pressure. They're going to need depth. They're going to need young defensive players who can rotate in, compete, and potentially give this defense another burst when the starters need a breather. And when you have Myles Garrett and Byron Young already commanding attention, having another edge player fighting for snaps can only make the competition more interesting. For Rickert, this is basically the beginning of a very important opportunity. He doesn't need to walk into camp and become a star. He just needs to show enough to keep getting opportunities. One strong preseason, 1 or 2 big plays, consistent effort. The ability to set the edge, get after the quarterback, and show that he belongs. That's how an undrafted player can change his entire career. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on Daniel Rickert, because these are the kinds of names that can disappear during the offseason and then suddenly become names Rams fans are talking about during preseason. Now let's move to the second story, and this one is a little tougher. The Rams are moving on from 23-year-old cornerback Dre Norwood. Norwood was an undrafted rookie free agent out of Missouri after previously spending time at Texas A&M. He was also the first player from this year's group of Missouri Tigers to sign as an undrafted free agent. And the timing here is important because the Rams have completely changed the look of their cornerback room this offseason. They acquired Trent McDuffie in a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs, and then they added McDuffie's former Chiefs teammate Jalen Watson in free agency. Those additions obviously made the competition at cornerback much tougher. But according to the report, those moves aren't actually what squeezed Norwood off the roster. The Rams announced on August 8th that they had waived Dre Norwood with an injury designation, writing that they had waived injured cornerback Dre Norwood. And that's the part we really need to focus on. Norwood is listed by the Rams at 6 feet tall and 187 pounds. He had also participated in the Chiefs' local prospect day before eventually getting an opportunity to impress the Rams in April. But right now, it's unclear exactly what Norwood was dealing with that led to this decision. And that's important, because we shouldn't speculate about an injury when the details haven't been made public. What we do know is what happens next. Norwood will go through the waiver process. If another team claims him, that team would get the opportunity to continue with him. If he goes unclaimed, he would revert to the Rams' injured reserve. From there, the Rams and Norwood could negotiate an injury settlement. If the two sides reach an agreement on that settlement, the Rams can officially part ways with him, and Norwood would then be free to sign with almost any team he wants. There is one important exception. He wouldn't immediately be able to return to the Rams. He would have to wait 3 weeks after the expiration of the settlement agreement before returning to Los Angeles. And when you look back at Norwood's college career, you can understand why the Rams gave him a chance in the first place. According to Missouri Tigers coverage from Joey Van Zummeren, Killian Wright, and Michael Stamps, Norwood became the first Missouri player to sign as an undrafted free agent this year after spending 4 years with the Tigers following his transfer from Texas A&M. He started 3 seasons for Missouri. Over 4 years with the Tigers, Norwood recorded 93 total tackles, 14 pass deflections, and 3 interceptions. So this wasn't some random player with no production. He had a legitimate college career, earned an NFL opportunity, and made it into the Rams' system. Unfortunately, getting an opportunity in the NFL and actually sticking around are 2 very different things. And that's the brutal reality of roster competition. The Rams are trying to build a roster that can compete at the highest level, and sometimes that means difficult decisions have to be made on young players who haven't even had much of a chance to establish themselves. For Dre Norwood, this is obviously disappointing. He came into the league as an undrafted player trying to prove that he belonged, and now an injury has put his immediate future in Los Angeles into question. But his NFL story isn't necessarily over. If he clears waivers and reaches an injury settlement, he could have the opportunity to find another team and continue chasing that dream. And from the Rams' perspective, this is another reminder of just how competitive this roster is becoming. You've got major additions like Myles Garrett on the defensive line, Byron Young continuing to develop, Trent McDuffie coming in to reshape the secondary, and Jalen Watson adding even more competition at cornerback. At the same time, you've got young players like Daniel Rickert trying to fight their way onto the roster, while other players like Dre Norwood are seeing their paths become much more uncertain. That's the NFL. It's exciting, it's competitive, and sometimes it's incredibly unforgiving. But if you're a Rams fan, there is a bigger picture here that I think matters. The Rams aren't sitting still. They're constantly evaluating the roster, adding competition, creating depth, and making difficult decisions before the regular season even arrives. And that's exactly what you want to see from a team with serious expectations. Because once the season starts, there are no more excuses. Every weakness gets exposed, every position matters, every snap matters. And the Rams are clearly trying to make sure they have as many answers as possible before that happens. So, Rams fans, that's where we stand. Daniel Rickert gets an opportunity to fight for a roster spot and potentially become another young piece in a defensive front, led by names like Myles Garrett and Byron Young. Meanwhile, Dre Norwood's time in Los Angeles is now in serious doubt after being waived with an injury designation, with the waiver process and potential injury settlement still ahead of him. It's a reminder that the NFL is a business, but it's also a brutal competition where one player can see his opportunity grow overnight, while another can see his path suddenly disappear. And honestly, that's what makes this time of year so fascinating. We're watching the Rams build this team piece by piece, and we still don't know exactly what the final roster is going to look like. But I can tell you one thing. The expectations are high. Rams fans aren't looking at this season thinking, let's just see what happens. We're looking at this roster and asking a much bigger question. Can this team actually make the kind of run we've been waiting for? Can all these defensive pieces come together when it matters? Can the Rams stay healthy, create pressure, win the key matchups, and ultimately put themselves in position to chase that Super Bowl? That's the standard now. And personally, I'm excited to see how all of this develops. There are still roster battles to be won. There are still players fighting for their careers. There are still decisions Sean McVay and the Rams' staff have to make. And every single one of those decisions could matter once the games actually count. So let me know what you think, Rams fans. Are you excited to see what Daniel Rickert can bring to this defense, especially with Myles Garrett and Byron Young getting so much attention? And what do you make of the Dre Norwood situation? Do you think the Rams made the right move, or do you wish we could have seen more from him before this decision? Hit that like button if you're riding with the Rams, and drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely want to hear what Rams House thinks. And if you're new here, this is Rams House Daily, and we're still building this thing from the ground up. Our first goal is 350 subscribers, and if you're a real Rams fan who believes in this team and wants to be here for the entire journey, hit that subscribe button. We're building this Rams community one fan at a time. The season is getting closer, the roster is taking shape, and the Super Bowl dream is still sitting there. Let's see if the Rams can make it real. I'll see you in the next one.